Robot that becomes a Trans Am. How 80s. So, what do you want to do for fun? We go around the country and stop the bad guys the law can't touch? Or do we do on the flip side and run block for 400 cases of illegal booze? I'm down for either one. I want some fun. Hello everybody, Sparkster1701 here. We're continuing our look at many of the 1984 Transformers with this mini vehicle, Windcharger. Windcharger, of course, came out in 1984 as one of the first Transformers to be released. He would also be available in 1985 and would be discontinued in 1986. Now, while Windcharger was a rather popular character, or at least toy, due to the fact of his alternate mode being a sporty car, he really didn't make much of an impact in the television show. Probably explains why in Transformers the movie, the 1986 film, he was disposed of in it, but his death was shown off-screen, and we only see the body as RC dragged Wheeljack next to it. The Windcharger is one that most of the modern lore has explained as having attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, to go along with the fact that he's stated to have a very short attention span. Things that interest him will keep him focused in the moment, but when he does not have that, his mind tends to wander and he loses interest in things rather quickly. It is kind of interesting to see how they incorporate real human emotions into these characters, because it gives somebody that suffers from any of these in real life a character to look up to. It's just unfortunate, though, that Windcharger seems to have fallen on the wayside of things. Because at present, I do not have a modern version of Windcharger. I know a recent one was done a number of years back, but I unfortunately did not get one of them. You know, what can I say? I was buying a lot of them on clearance and at Ollie's. So I never got around to him, and by the time I could, they were no longer carrying them, and really haven't found a reasonable offer on many since then. So, unfortunately, I don't have a modern one to show, but seeing as that last modern one was the Titans Return, Power of the Primes era, so it has been a good number of years since we had a new Windcharger, and we're probably about due for one. And we'll take a look here at Windcharger's articulation, and he had, excuse me, about what was par for the course for many Transformers of this size. We could rotate his arms at the shoulder all the way, if you have his arm out far enough, so that way it'll clear the car kibble on his back. And he can bend his legs at the knees, but that really doesn't serve much of a purpose. So as we take a look at him now, we'll get him transformed. First thing we do is we've got to lower his arms, like so. And then you push them inside at the shoulders. And then you'll fold his feet up all the way, and there we go. Windcharger is in his alternate form as a Pontiac Trans Am. Of course, the Trans Am was one of the more popular vehicles showcased back in the late 70s and the early 80s. Especially the models that were featured in black paint. Excuse me a second. Sorry for that interruption, folks. Anyway, as I was saying, the Trans Am gained a lot of popularity thanks to the film Smokey and the Bandit, and of course the 1980s television series Knight Rider, which both featured the Trans Am prominently. Now, while I can't say much on the former Trans Am, the latter one, featured in Knight Rider, does have a lot of interesting stories behind it. There is a channel here on YouTube known as the Knight Rider Historians, where they recovered a lot of the artifacts from the show, including 2 screen-used cars from the show, which they have restored. They are in the process of restoring one of the semi-trucks and its associated trailer that were used on the show. So, if you're definitely a fan of Knight Rider or just like to see vehicles being restored, I definitely recommend you check their channel out. It's a lot of interesting stuff. As for Windcharger here, he's a nice representation of a Trans Am. And while he was made in red, there was a black variant of Windcharger released a number of years back. Because some small company got the molds for all 6 of the original mini vehicles. So, you know, Windcharger, Huffer, Gears, Cliff Jumper, Bumblebee, and Brawn. And they made made them into keychains. And each one of them got a variant color. And as I read, Windcharger's was done in black. So, you could have had a black Trans Am hanging on your car keys. That sounds silly, doesn't it? At any rate, let's see how Windcharger rolls on these tires. Rolls pretty good. Got a little overexcited there. Almost ran into Larry's feet. Unlike some of the others, like Bumblebee and Cliff Jumper, Windcharger has plastic wheels, so... But at least they won't degrade over time as easily. Alright, get Windcharger to stand back up here. Now I'm going to reach over here and get file cards. Thank you, Larry, for holding them. Yes, I said file cards because I do have 2 versions of the file card. This one over here is the 1984 release because it had him down here in his car mode. And then over here is the 1985 release, which had him in robot mode and had an inset picture here to showcase the car. And then we'll turn them around here to the back side. I mean, yeah, somebody stole the barcode off of this one. I don't know why, but ours is not to ask the reasons why. As you can see here, the instructions are done up in the reverse order to kind of showcase the differences. Since, like we said, the one was in car mode on purchase, the other was in robot mode. And of course, we have the different murals from that time. And the 85 one also had space here for the rub sign instructions. Then down at the bottom, we had the barcode as featured on the one, and next to it was the robot points. Windcharger was worth half a point. And then down here, we have his tech spec card. Both of them are the same, so there's not really any point in comparing them. It's done up in red to showcase he is an Autobot. It even says Autobot above the picture. And the picture is meant to be representative of this one here on the front of the card. It states that Windcharger's function is a warrior, which basically means he's a generic soldier. And we got a quote associated with him that says, "Quick action equals quick victory." Windcharger is the fastest Autobot over short distances. Good in situations requiring fast, decisive action. Enthusiastic but impatient. Short attention span. Casts powerful magnetic field which can attract or repel large metal objects. Smashes them at closer distances. These abilities use up tremendous energy. Often burns himself out due to carelessness. So this gives a lot of interesting things about Windcharger, but we never really got to see a lot of that in action. Like his magnetic field would have been a great way to fling guys aside or bring them closer to him as needed. And this thing down here about burning himself out due to carelessness, that could probably also be attained to his mental state as well. It would have been interesting to have seen this explored a little bit more. Of course, now that there's a new company doing the comic books for the Transformers, maybe they ought to take a look at some of these old G1 bios and try to come up with some ideas out of this for some of the characters. It might be an interesting thought. Alright, now we'll move on over here to his statistics. Normally you'd need a decoder to read these, but I can see the lines very easily. It gives his strength as 4, his intelligence is 6, his speed is 8, his endurance is 4, his rank is 5, his courage is 9, his firepower is 7, and his skill is 6. So it does reflect well that he is rather fast and he is brave, but he's kind of about average in most everything else. So now we get to my thoughts. Windcharger has the potential to be an interesting character, and I think he still does have that potential, especially when you look at some of the notes written here on his file card. It would certainly be interesting for modern writers to try to look into this and utilize it. ADHD is a real problem, and seeing how a Transformer deals with it might be an interesting way to further bring it about to the forefront. Like a lot of other things in life, sometimes those of us who are suffering from it need somebody that we can look to, especially if they've walked a mile in our own shoes. Somebody like Windcharger could provide that inspiration for somebody going through with that. As a toy, the Windcharger figure wasn't bad. I mean, as a robot, it's kind of okay. Back then, they really weren't the best, but it was serviceable. His car mode of a Trans Am will always be a beloved classic. So, Windcharger's definitely one to go after, but I do hope that he'll someday get another modern version and maybe a little more respect in some of the other media to bring about the seriousness of his mental issues. And that's my review of the Generation 1 version of Windcharger. I hope you all enjoyed it. And please do remember that if you love the content we feature here on this channel, I'd appreciate a like, a share, and a comment. And please do subscribe if you haven't done so already. This is Sparkster1701 saying I will catch you all later.